Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Friday, November the 1st, 2024. I'm David Menzies, and bear with me because I got sloppy with my poppy. My original one blew off, so I bought another one, and there it is, back where it belongs. As I was saying, I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a bit about my co-host, shall I? Do you know that yesterday, in addition to being Halloween, it was also National Knock Knock Joke Day? And my friend is a huge fan of knock knock jokes, and I am going to recite the greatest knock knock joke ever written after I formally introduce her. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn-Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
David, I forgot my darn poppy, and usually there's one sitting on my desk. And I'm the poppy enforcer at the company. I'm so embarrassed.
Well, you know what? I have a second one. I'll display this in solidarity for Sheila's missing poppy. And I'm serious, Sheila. The wind blew off 2 poppies already. So I have a wallet with about 5. I just lost your solidarity pop. I have a wallet with 5 poppies in it. And I got to tell you, a veteran once gave me a fantastic tip to keep the poppies on. Get a little bit of get an eraser, cut off a little bit and put it on the end of the pin, and it's an anchor. It'll withstand a hurricane. So I think
back.
Pardon me?
The back of an earring, you just slide it up the pin of the poppy and it'll stay there too.
Well, I'm not one to wear earrings, given that I'm not a trans woman yet. I'll take your word for it. Anyway, Sheila, before we get into housekeeping and all the stories of the day, I teased to the audience that...
Yes, let's hear it.
Okay. Folks, this is the greatest knock-knock joke ever written. Sheila, start it off.
Knock, knock.
Who's there? Oh, you jabroni, you fell for it 2 years in a row. I'm the one that's supposed to start a knock-knock joke.
Who tells knock-knock jokes anymore? Sorry, I'm rusty. I'm rusty on a genre of joke that died before I was born. Forgive me, David.
Olivia, we got to clip that image of Sheila when I say who's there. And she looks like Bambi looking into the high beams of a Hummer on the 401.
You're ridiculous, David. Honest to God.
2 years in a row, folks.
2 years in a row. Yeah.
Anyway, Sheila, I think you got to give the housekeeping and mention what it is we're hopefully accomplishing today.
Who even knows? Who even knows? And I should tell you, David, we've got to keep the show tight and tidy if we can, because I've got to skedaddle out of here. So I've got to get to Red Deer because it is the United Conservative Party AGM today, and I'm meeting the big boss there. So we want to make sure that we're on the ground flying the rebel flag at the United Conservative Party meeting of the minds over this weekend.
Well, Red Deer would be what, Central Alberta? I know you're Northern Alberta, so that's what, about an 8 or 9 hour drive for you, or?
Yes. No, it's over 2 hours though. It's over 2 hours. Yeah. Although it's like an hour to anywhere for me. So civilization, what even is that? But this is the Rebel News live stream. It's our twice weekly show wherein we talk about the news of the day, as you can probably tell, completely unscripted. And it gives us a chance to interact with you, our beloved viewer. What I mean by that? Well, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for sticking it out there. I realize why you're there. If you're like me, it's for spite, but it is a censorship platform and they've completely demonetized us. So if you want to stay there, that's great, especially because they don't want you there. Anchor down, friends. But we're demonetized there. So if you want to interact with us and support the work that we do, might I suggest you wander over to a really great free speech platform that doesn't believe in censoring the users, that they actually believe in your fundamental right to free speech. Head over to Rumble. On Rumble, you can do all the things you know and love about YouTube without the censorship. So there's a live chat there. You can leave comments after the fact, and you can also do something called a Rumble rant. It's very similar to YouTube's super chat. And if your Rumble rant that you leave for us is over the $5 US cutoff, we are obligating ourselves to read it and address it on air. But don't let that be the bar for entry, because every little bit helps us here at Rebel News. We'll never take a penny from Justin Trudeau for the work that we do, and how could we ever hold him to account if we did? So if your Rumble rant is under that, we appreciate it. And who knows, you might just see it read on air as well. So those are the housekeeping details. David, let's get into the news of the week.
Yeah, well, Sheila, speaking of Justin Trudeau, we have something from one of his personal friends, Sean Fraser, also the housing minister. Now, I did mention, folks, right off the hop, it is November 1st, but I'm beginning to think, I was pinching myself, is it April 1st? You are not going to believe what Minister Fraser had to say about the trucker convoy of 2 years ago. It is off the charts insane. Let's roll the video evidence.
Mr. Speaker, I sometimes ask myself where they found this guy. He twists the facts to suit his narrative whenever he wants. It's almost like the Conservative Party, when looking for a new leader, hopped on Temu, typed in far-right Conservative, and then spit this guy out instead. He opposes investments in affordable housing. He borrows lessons from his cousin south of the border when he opposes birth control for women. During the January 6th of Canada, the convoy, he wasn't just telling people to stand by, he was bringing them coffee in the streets. Mr. Speaker, it might be election season in America. We don't need this far right-wing populism here at home.
The Honourable Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of leadership contestants, that member must be so uptight and angry because the polling shows that though Canadians want to fire that Prime Minister, the Housing Minister ranks dead last in the polls to replace him. And why wouldn't he? This is the guy who lost track of 1 million people when he was immigration minister. Right. He ignored warnings from his own department that letting in 200% more people would cause a housing shortage. And his own government spent the last week trashing his entire immigration record. How can arrogance and incompetence so comfortably reside in one man?
Yeah!
Well, Sheila, two things. I know the year has 2 full months yet to go, but to me, that's the line of the year from Mr. Poilievre. How can arrogance and incompetence so comfortably reside in one man? Boy, that's Shakespearean. But the line I was talking about that made me wonder is if it's April 1st as opposed to November 1st. Did Minister Fraser actually call the Freedom Convoy the January 6th of Canada?
Yeah, the January 6th of Canada, where the streets got cleaner and safer. You know, given the Liberals' public safety policies, we should be advocating for freedom convoys in every city in this country. They land in the city and all of a sudden the crime rate goes down. Boy, we could sure use that in places like Calgary these days. I don't know if you saw, it was in our morning media scan, David, that crime is up, I think it's 70% property crimes in downtown Calgary. That's Gondak's policies coupled with Justin Trudeau's catch and release policies. And the province of Alberta is doing its best to put out the fire somebody else started once again.
Unbelievable, Sheila. And you know what? Are you getting as sick and tired as I when it comes to the descriptor far right? What does that even mean? I mean, if you're not a liberal, if you're not ultra left wing, if you're on
Right.
the center, if you're right of, I don't know, Mao Zedong or Joseph Stalin, you're far
Yes.
right. What is he talking about with that kind of descriptor, Sheila?
They don't even know. I would love to ask Sean Fraser what exactly far right is. Is far right wanting to limit immigration because your boss is doing that now? You know, what is far right? Far right is maybe trying to limit the size and scope of government. Trudeau is trying to do that now that he's being mugged by reality. So like what even is far right? Is
Yeah.
far right is far right somebody who advocates the policies your party's about to adopt once they see themselves continue to plummet in the polls? Because that's what I think.
And the other thing when it comes to Minister Fraser, Sheila, what is this deal of failing up or failing laterally in the Justin Trudeau government? He's the housing minister. I've never seen the housing mess in such a crisis in all my life.
Terrible.
And before that, he was the immigration minister. And well, that file, we don't even have to say a word about what a fiasco that has been, even so much as now that the Trudeau Liberals are now paring back the numbers. And just barely a month ago, when Pierre Poilievre was suggesting that, he was being described as xenophobic and racist. So I guess, is the current immigration minister racist and xenophobic too? Because this is what he's doing now as a matter of policy, not criticism.
Right. This is what I mean by our far right policies, the policies the Liberal Party will adopt once they're mugged by reality, which is what they continue to do. And look, let me just preface this when I say it. Jason Kenney of 2012 to 2013, 14, 15, under Stephen Harper, Sean Fraser is the anti-Jason Kenney, in that in those days, Jason Kenney as a federal minister was the fixer. He would go into these failing ministries like the D&D, immigration, whatever they call the jobs ministry now. He would go in and fix it. It would be a disaster. Jason Kenney would go in and fix it. And for those of us here in Alberta, we thought that's what he was going to do to our government when when we got rid of the NDP and then he was premier. We're like, oh, perfect, the fixer's here. He didn't fix things. But when he was under Stephen Harper, he went in and fixed things. Sean Fraser is like bizarro Jason Kenney. He just goes into these ministries and destroys them.
You know, you raise a great point, Sheila. And I just thought of something based on what you're saying. Jason Kenney, he is the political version of New Coke circa 1985, isn't he?
Yeah.
Which was a complete disaster. The company had to revert back to Coke Classic. So
but yeah, when he was old Coke, he was fine.
yeah. So 2012, 2015, as you said, that was Jason Kenney Classic. And then Jason Kenney as the premier in Alberta during COVID, new Jason Kenney. Oh, just like Coke, I prefer the classic to the new. And now both are gone. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, we should move on.
Let's get into Alberta stuff. Let's get into Alberta stuff now that we're talking about this, because Alberta has become the first major jurisdiction in this country, I think the first jurisdiction in this country to protect women's sports. Major announcement came yesterday, late in the day, although we knew it was coming early in the day. Our Premier Danielle Smith, as promised and long overdue, a whole slate of changes to the Public Health Act in Alberta and a number of others, moving to not only ban men from competing against women in women's sports, but to protect those sporting organizations from federal government overreach if the federal government tells them, look, you are violating human rights by not letting men destroy the sporting careers of women. So that's great. So not only is she outlawing it, but also providing protections. She's also, she is amending the Public Health Act to protect civil liberties. That's a strong consideration in our Public Health Act. She also, one thing that sort of went under the radar yesterday, school closures. She's making it a right in the education system to in-person education. And so school closures during public health emergencies will be a maximum of 3 days. And then they have to go back to the minister repeatedly for permission to extend it, because the focus will be on keeping kids in school so that Alberta kids are not losing 2 years of school to combat an illness that doesn't really affect them. And then, of course, the halt to gender transitions for minors in this province. So big changes yesterday.
You know, Sheila, isn't Premier Smith just knocking it out of the ballpark these days? And I got to tell you, the one thing I want to focus in on, because I've had so much experience the last couple of years in the field reporting on this, is the invasion of women's sports by males. And what I've always asked, Sheila, is where are the feminists on this? Where do you remember 10 minutes before COVID, we had the Me Too movement in light of the Harvey Weinstein scandal? When did the Me Too movement, which was a movement standing up for women, when did it become the screw you movement when it comes to female sports? And it is unbelievable that any real biological woman, and I apply that to any person, whether you're a mother or a father, would go to bat for these transgenders that are literally injuring real women. And, you know, to see the blowback on something that's common sense, as we've discussed over and over, with the exception of auto racing and equestrian, twas ever thus, males and females competed in different divisions. So good for her for standing up. I wish we saw this in Ontario, where we have all kinds of radical transgenders cheating and injuring real women, but we don't have that here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I love what Premier Smith did in her legislation, because it's not enough just to say guys can't compete against girls. It's not enough, because we know that a lot of sporting organizations have felt like their hands were tied because of Justin Trudeau's human rights legislation. So basically, these protections are in place to say, look, enforce the law here in Alberta, and we'll make sure you're protected. So that should alleviate some of the excuses coming out of some sporting organizations. And of course, all the right people are angry about this. And we'll discuss that in a second. And it is the same old people. It's the same old people who are challenging parents' rights legislation in Saskatchewan, and the same ministers from Alberta who are going to get their asses handed to them in the next election, Randy Boissonnault. So let's actually
and Sheila, can I ask you a hypothetical question based on Smith's announcement when it comes to female sports? Which is basically, if you're a chick and think of something that rhymes with chick, if you have one of those, you ain't playing on the female team. But what if it's a visiting team from another jurisdiction? For example, as we chronicled last year, the Seneca Sting female volleyball team, 3 of the 6 starters were men. This year, Sheila, breaking news, 4 of the 6 starters are men.
Right.
So if they went to Edmonton or Calgary for an exhibition game with the University of Alberta team, would they be allowed to field those dudes? Or, I mean, I think it's a fascinating question that, you know, we should seek an answer for.
I would imagine that the jurisdiction in which the game is taking place takes precedent. I mean, it would just be like, you come here, you abide by our laws. I think that would probably be the way that's handled. I'm sure there will be some outcry again from all the right people, but I'm drinking their tears. I'm hydrated by their tears today. Let's go into this clip from Danielle Smith making the announcement that she is, as she says, safeguarding children's future choices, which is true. Because if you start medically transitioning minors, you've eliminated every single future choice to reverse that. We know that puberty blockers are not reversible. We know that this has catastrophic impacts on reproductive issues going forward. We also know it has physiological issues and puts you at greater risk for like all those things that come upon you post-menopause is coming upon 20-year-olds who were transitioned as children. Anyway, let's listen to Premier Smith explain her reasoning here.
Today, our government is introducing 3 pieces of legislation that will set up guardrails to protect the health and safety of Alberta youth. First, we're proposing changes that would protect the future choices of minors who identify as transgender or who are experiencing gender dysphoria. We're also tabling the Education Amendment Act, which proposes changes to the way gender identity, sexual orientation, and human sexuality are discussed and taught in Alberta schools. The final bill I'll talk about is the Fairness and Safety in Sports Act. It aims to ensure everyone can fairly and safely participate in the sports they love. Sport is an important part of many people's lives. These amendments are about being fair and supporting children and youth now in the event that they later choose to make life-altering and potentially permanent decisions. As I've done every time I've spoken about these policies, I want to speak to the youth who are most affected. I and my entire government are here to support you and uplift you and your families. You are loved, and we are absolutely committed to ensuring that you receive the support you and your family may need.
Oh, that's just so fantastic. You know, what a stark contrast, Sheila, between Premier Smith speaking out against trans insanity, whereas south of the border, the woman who wants to become president, Kamala Harris, supports sex reassignment surgery for illegal aliens and prisoners. And Sheila, I ask you this, and I ask our audience this. Have you ever come across someone, you know, fretting and hewing, saying, oh, I hope that illegal alien serial killer in San Quentin, I hope he gets free taxpayer-funded sex reassignment. It's such a violation of his human rights. How does that resemble reality and what's just?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but the people in the background, a couple of them at least, are visibly trans, standing behind Danielle Smith, saying this is a decision that should be made by adults. Did you see our friend April Hutchinson was in the audience to hear that being announced at the press conference yesterday, along with Linda Blade, Coach Linda Blade, author of Unsporting. These are 2 women who have been fighting for our daughters to be able to have their opportunities protected. It is only the crazy people out there that think that you should be giving cross-sex hormones to 11-year-olds. Yeah. It is crazy people who think that this stuff should be hidden from parents. And the more I dig on this and the more that I'm exposed to the teaching materials that have been given to Canadian schools, I mean, we should be horrified. A lot of this has been happening under the noses of parents. And when parents want the information, it's being withheld. So even good parents are being shut out of the conversation. And that Sheila, ends now.
Why is it only on this file? The idea of parental consent for a minor to engage in an activity. Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't infringe upon that minor. Now, Sheila, I know you're a tattoo aficionado. If a minor goes to a tattoo shop, don't they need the parental consent to get any ink?
Oh, I know that for sure, because my daughter wanted a tattoo. She was 17 at the time. And I thought, you know what? She is an absolute excellent child. Like, I take no credit for how great she is, but, you know, honors, university scholarships, athlete, works a job. And I thought, you know what? This is the one thing that she's asking me to bend a rule when she is an obsessive rule follower. I'll do it. I had to be present with her. I had to sign a consent form. And it was an ordeal to make sure that she was making a decision that that we both wanted. And the thing is, a tattoo, it is painful, but you can cover it up and you can remove it. You cannot remove the damage done by cross-sex hormones and surgeries.
That's exactly my point. You can cover it up. You can get tattoo removal, which I understand is even more painful than getting the tattoo.
It is.
I'm still a blank canvas, so I'm just going by what I read. But as you said, you go through the puberty blockers, the sex reassignment. You are rendered sterile. Yeah. And that is okay, that irreversible, decision. And all I can think of, Sheila, especially with our friends in the U.S., more privatized medical care than we have here, this is being driven by the almighty dollar. This is a potential new windfall of billions and billions of dollars if they can just get kids through the sex reassignment mill.
Yeah, they'll medicalize you for life.
Yeah.
Because now you're on drugs for the rest of your life to mitigate the damage done by cross-sex hormones, even as an adult. You're just medicalized from the initial gender-affirming care to the end of your life. It is an absolute process where you will never get off the big pharma merry-go-round.
So the most serious, I mean, forget about tattoos, Sheila. When my kids were in elementary school, when it came to a field trip, it was typically 8 pages of stuff you had to read through, sign, initial, and basically it boiled down to this. We're having a field trip to the Toronto Zoo. If your kid falls in the lion's, display and gets eaten alive, we're not liable. That's what it basically said, but you had to sign this, right?
Right. I mean, every year I have to go through the yearly consent forms, and one of them is, can we take a picture of your kid? The other one is, can your kid use technology at school? Why? Because even that stuff has an inherent risk. And yet, these same teachers, not all of them, same teachers and their unions and their associated government parties in the Liberals and the NDP here in Alberta, they think it's perfectly fine for teachers to transition your child at school, to socially transition them. Meanwhile, I'm like, maybe you can take a picture of my kid. Like, it's
unbelievable,
bizarre.
Sheila. And as you alluded to, the usual suspects are the biggest critics. I think you're going to read a tweet or an X, however it's called, from Randy Boissonnault, once again being on the wrong side of history. But take it away, Sheila.
Which Randy even tweeted this?
Yeah, which Randy?
Randy Boissonnault. He's, for those of you keeping track at home, he doesn't know which Randy he is. He is the guy who owns 50% of a company with a man who looks like end stage humanity if we don't fix our diet and start doing some physical exercise. Steven Anderson. They owned a PPE company during the pandemic, which got government contracts while Randy Boissonnault is in government voting on lockdowns. Isn't that weird? And then his excuse was, I don't know which Randy is a autocorrect text message. I wasn't running the company and they have text messages to Randy. He's like, oh, it's autocorrect. And maybe it's another Randy. So I don't know which Randy tweeted this. And now, as moreover to David's earlier point about the Liberals failing upward, guess who's the minister in charge of Jasper Rebuild?
Unbelievable.
Anyway, Randy Boissonnault is going to get his liberal ass handed to him in the next election, because the only reason he has a seat is because of a vote split between the PPC and the Conservatives in his riding. And this is what he tweets. Today, the Premier tabled horrendous legislation and said that she knows better than doctors. No, she's saying, I don't know better than parents. Parents know better. She understands kids better than their own loving parents. She's actually saying, no, teachers don't know better than the parents. And she knows better than the overwhelming majority of Albertans that support equality and dignity. Campaign at the door on this, big guy. Go knock some doors in Edmonton Centre and ask them, should parents know if kids are being socially transitioned at schools? Should men play rugby against girls? Should kids be given cross-sex hormones at age 11? Randy, I dare you to knock the doors on that issue. I cannot wait to see you get the old get off my lawn treatment like that NDP candidate did in Saskatchewan.
And by the way, speaking of misinformation, disinformation, that's a bunch of bunk about the increased suicide risk rates for queer kids unless you give them gender reassignment. And by the way, Sheila, it's so small on my monitor.
By the way, the suicide rate doesn't go down post gender affirming care.
That's right.
That's the point.
They think it's a utopia. And they find out their lives haven't turned around. It's not a happy ever after ending. And they're miserable. And some transition back. The mainstream media never talks about those stories, right? Never. And others, as you said, unfortunately commit suicide. But what is that little blob next to his X verification mark? Is that, does he, is that?
If it's like a weird egg-shaped blob, it's
Is that the pride flag?
Yeah.
I thought pride season was over. It's November, for
never
goodness
ends.
sake.
It's always pride. For
How come
Randy.
there's not a poppy there, for example? Huh?
Oh, you know what? Let's lobby Elon Musk for a poppy. Yeah. Anyways, and Randy Boissonnault, he loves to meddle in jurisdictions outside of his own. For example, he tried to get the Pride sidewalk in Westlock, even though he's from Edmonton. Westlock is a farming community north of the city, and he was like, "Yep, we're going to make sure that they get to keep their Pride sidewalk," and they yanked it out and passed a bylaw saying no, despite all of his best efforts. And here's the thing with the Liberals. The Liberals know that this stuff is provincial jurisdiction. Health, education, sport, it's all provincial jurisdiction. He can run his yap all he wants, but he really has no authority. So what the Liberals do, and what they are currently doing in Saskatchewan, is they fund proxy groups to fight with the provinces. EGAL, they started getting federal funding in 2017 from the Liberals. They're a radical LGBTQ plus organization. They got $10.3 million over 5 years. But then the provinces started cracking down on this stuff. In Saskatchewan, they have their Parents' Bill of Rights. In Alberta, now this. Guess what? EGAL in 2024 is not even over yet. They're approaching $4 million.
Jeez.
So they are using that money in active litigation against Saskatchewan. And EGAL promised yesterday, we're coming for you too, Alberta. So Danielle Smith is smart, and I believe she is. She better shroud this legislation from legal challenges with the use of the notwithstanding clause. Otherwise, we're going to be in litigation with these weirdos for years. Yep. The shrouding of it in Saskatchewan has not stopped the litigation. Here's what they're doing. They're doing an end run around it. So the notwithstanding clause means that you can't constitutionally challenge the law. It remains operational despite the Constitution. So the activist groups are saying, okay, fine. We're taking you to court. The only remedy we want, we know it can't be overturned. We want an acknowledgement that the law is unconstitutional, yet operational. So it doesn't affect the use of the law. But what it does is it protects the teachers who have no intent of following the law from professional consequences. Yeah. So you parents, you still have to be on high alert, is all I'm saying.
100%. And by the way, speaking of big bucks, with Randy being all down with Pride crosswalks, do you know, Sheila, those things start the paint job at $12,500. I don't know where the money goes, but it's $12,500 and up. And I think, wasn't it in your neck of the woods? Somebody either deliberately or accidentally did a skid mark with their car or truck, and it was treated as the day of infamy against the queer community.
Yeah, next time just clip the pedestrian in the crosswalk instead of coming to a quick halt, lest you be charged with a hate crime.
And in the Department of Perverse Irony, when it came to repairing, as I understand the story, the restoring the Pride crosswalk, because it was the Pride Progress, which has the the pink color embedded in it for as part of the trans flag, because they're special. There was a worldwide shortage of pink paint. Why? Well, evidently Disney bought every gallon in the world when they filmed the Barbie movie. Good. So it's like, would you guys settle for light red? No, we want pink. And now we're going to cry.
Heaven forbid they figure out how to tint red paint with white. Anyway, let's Olivia whispers that we should move on from this. I've got an ad read, a couple of chats to read because they're relevant, and then we'll do a Rebel News ad, and we'll move into Justin Trudeau being Trudeau. So somebody writes in the chat, as I said, sometimes you read the free one. They ask about my Ungovernable sweatshirt. So Ungovernable is a line of merchandise from our documentary Ungovernable about the, I don't want to say separatist sentiments here in Alberta, but sort of the historical sovereigntist ideas here in Alberta and where it comes from and where we are now. It's a great movie. I'm in it. But We like this shirt because it's relevant always. Always be ungovernable. And it is at rebelnewsstore.com. You'll find this shirt and merch from our other documentaries and just regular general Rebel News merch. And we're adding new stuff all the time. And if you use the coupon code Sheila10, you'll get 10% off.
So that's what your sweatshirt says. You see, Sheila, I train myself not to look at that particular area of the female anatomy. And I mean, you're just asking for trouble. You know, my Hungarian neighbors many years ago, they came back from Hungary. They gave Lady Menzoid a T-shirt with the map of Hungary on it, and she put it on. And I went, holy mackerel! I didn't know the Alps were in Hungary. Anyway, it's just asking for trouble. I think I'm already in it. So go on.
You are. Lisa, to your wife you're talking about this time. Okay. Ryerson Gary gives us $5 and says, I watched the Danielle Smith Ezra Fireside chat yesterday. I propose a trade. Don't you dare. Smith for Ford? For what? A railway boxcar or a 53-foot highway trailer of pickles, Toronto Blue Jays, and 6 premiers to be named later. I still think we're getting the wrong raw end of the deal.
Oh, yeah. You know, from ungovernable to untradeable, I would say, Sheila.
Yeah.
Although, in all fairness, I call him as I see him, and the Ford government is going ramrodding through. It's not even passed into legislation. They are yanking out several kilometers of bike lanes in Toronto. All the Liberals are boo-hooing that he has no right. Oh, actually, he does. You see, all municipalities are a creature of the provincial government, and we are mired in gridlock. Toronto is the 3rd worst city in the world, traffic-wise, after London and Dublin. That means we're number 1 in North America. Think about that, Sheila. People in Los Angeles and Mexico City are saying, eat that, Toronto. We're driving faster than you are. So good on Doug on this particular file. I wish there was a little more consistency. For example, what Premier Smith announced yesterday on the trans file.
I think as you see Trudeau's popularity continue to plummet, you'll see Doug Ford taking steps away from him because those two were besties there for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My good friend, Justin. We've got a chat also from Wonder Woman Wells, gives us $5. She says she shared some transgender memes displaying their ridiculousness on her private social media accounts and was fined $1,200 by her work. Can you send that to me, Sheila, at rebelnews.com? Tell me your story. I'll flip it to David. This seems right up David's alley.
And Wonder Woman Wells, if you can mention whereabouts you are in our great dominion, we'll pay a house call if possible. But that sounds outrageous. But then again, Sheila, once again, our big boss man, Ezra Levant, he's prescient, isn't he? He predicted 2024 was going to be the year of censorship, and it just never ends, does it?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And as we approach the next election, it's only going to get worse because that is, I think, the only way the Liberals are going to win the next election is to censor every single dissenting political voice. And we can actually
I disagree,
talk about
Sheila. That. Not that they won't try to censor. It's beyond that. Even if this is Orwellian-like censorship, they're toast as far as I'm concerned. I just can't wait. Well, we're 11 months away now, right?
For sure. 11 months. Okay, we've got a message from Be Naked. In today's society, it's tough to be a man in a world dominated by overly masculine liberal women. That's just not how it's meant to be. And underly masculine liberal men. Everywhere we look, it's gender neutral, this product, or made for her, that product. That's why we started a company that embodies the ethos of men's lives matter too, with products that aren't designed to be gender neutral or used by people with pronouns. Our products at Rumble are designed and built for men, by men, period. So if you struggle with low energy, mood swings, or hair loss, or if you need to perform better at the gym or maybe in bed and recover quickly after, throw out all your garbage supplements and try animal organs. They're traditionally the most nutrient-rich supplements on the planet. Our bison organs are a step above. The grass-fed, non-vaccinated bison are a species where the weak are allowed to die and only the strongest survive. So here's our commitment to you from men who have real confidence in their products. Try this today. And if you don't like it, fine. Return it for a refund. Go to benaked.com, code studio, and get 15% off today. And I think we've got some Rebel News messages, and then we'll be back to talk about what the Liberals are up to in Ottawa.
What if governments are trying to reinvent the wheel when the greatest teacher of all times has already laid out the perfect blueprint for a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Introducing the Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport. This special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love, ethics, and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another and to be part of something bigger that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport at freedompassport.ca. And right now, all orders in North America come with free shipping and a free downloadable song with every purchase.
Quality of life matters. Affording groceries and the basics matters. Ottawa has a different agenda. Their energy production cap will cut your family's budget, which means less money in your wallet. We say let common sense prevail. Tell the feds at scrapthecap.ca.
Why should you join Canada's National Firearms Association? We currently have one of the most aggressively anti-firearm governments in our nation's history, promoting fear and placing blame like never before. Our rights, freedoms, culture, and heritage, it's all on the line. But we are fighting back, and there is strength in numbers. We work within the law to change the law, to defend competitors, hunters, collectors, and other law-abiding firearms owners. We can get through this. We've done it before, and we'll do it again, if you are with us. Canada's National Firearms Association. Freedom, safety, responsibility.
And Sheila, I just want to say in regard to our latest advertiser, Be Naked, I am going to support this company with my hard-earned do-re-mi because I went onto their website during the ad break and an incredible disclaimer popped up. And it says the following, quote, "If you're one of those people who use the phrase toxic masculinity because you're intimidated by real men who embrace their primal instincts, you should leave." That's earned my business. So
Yeah.
I really hope their products will result in results for me because, you know, I'm getting to the end of the warranty, Sheila. I need a little help. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my goodness.
Maybe not. I meant in more energy, you see. Yeah, that part.
Let's go into the next topic because something just dawned on me about this and the absolute hypocrisy of these Liberal MPs. Now, they are demanding a secret ballot to determine Trudeau's future. As Alex Dollywall at Rebel News writes, disgruntled Liberals have held closed-door meetings over booting Prime Minister Trudeau since June. A summer of discontent. Some have suggested a secret ballot vote, but there's no internal mechanism to introduce that. And apparently there are at least 24 Liberal MPs calling for his resignation in the weakest coup ever, led by Sean Casey, who's like, Justin Trudeau read us a speech. And so I guess we like him again.
You know, Sheila, I got to tell you, you know who I really feel badly for? It's Captain Bligh. I mean, if these Keystone Cops were part of the mutiny on the Bounty would still be sailing under Captain Bligh. These guys are pathetic.
Now, here it gets better, though. The Liberals want a secret ballot for themselves. Does anybody remember Bill C-4?
Oh, yeah.
C-4 was the removal of the secret ballot for unions, done by the Liberals. So Stephen Harper made sure that if you are in a union, you are able to have a secret ballot if you're voting on union issues, so that people who were conservative yet shoehorned into a union by the lack of right to work legislation, that you would not be exposed or unmasked by your union for voting for things that might be against the union leadership Well, the Liberals repealed 2 changes that Stephen Harper put in 2017. It was actually one of their first pieces of legislation when the Liberals finally got to work after they were like, we're going to give you a carbon tax and a bunch of other stuff. They introduced it like right off the hop in early 2016. It wandered its way through the House and the Senate. And by 2017, these 2 pieces of legislation or 2 regulations that Harper had put in were removed. So the Liberals want a secret ballot for themselves because they're worried about repercussions from their leader. But if you were in a union, they didn't care about repercussions for you. If you were facing repercussions by your union leadership, these absolute hypocrites.
Do as I say, not as I do. Geez, isn't that the theme of this young decade, Sheila?
Yes. Other thing the Liberals are up to this week, if I think the media is just sort of catching up to us. The Liberals are forcing crisis pregnancy centers to abide by certain labeling rules. They basically have to tell you, we don't provide abortion. We won't give you birth control. If you want that, it's probably across the street, which is, you know, usually crisis pregnancy centers are across the street from an abortion facility, because if you're there and you are not sure and you're contemplating changing your mind, they're there to catch you while you're falling and say, like, look, you are perfectly capable of having this baby. There is help available to you. We will be here to help. We'll be here to provide resources to you. There is another option. Well, the Liberals say it's anti-choice to actually provide women with options.
Wow.
And so they're saying that these facilities, these crisis pregnancy centers, are misleading. I don't know I don't know how that would be, because they're actually focused on the pregnancy as opposed to terminating it. But they're saying that they are misusing and abusing the charity rules in this country. And they are taking advantage of vulnerable women by, I don't know, providing them with services and doing charitable work that the government probably could be doing, but isn't, because they are so focused on the other side of this debate. And so anyways, that's what the Liberals are up to this week. And Trudeau, like some sort of absolute weirdo, brings his daughter into the House of Commons for this announcement. And it just gives me the absolute heebie-jeebies to hear him say this while his teenage daughter is in the audience. It's just another, like, for the party of Hamas apologists, they sure love their human shields, don't they? But it just gave me the heebie-jeebies. If you're like me and if you think these actual women's charities do real charitable work and they should be left alone by the government, go to savewomenscharities.com, sign the petition, and we'll make sure it gets on the hands of the finance minister, as well as the women's minister and the justice minister, Freeland also, just being a goblin on this. But let's go to Trudeau's announcement.
Today we're moving forward on important legislation focused on pregnancy crisis centers to make sure that women get the right information about the services and support that they need when they're making important life choices. We're always going to be there as a government, as a party, to stand up for women's rights, for women's reproductive rights, and push back against anyone who's trying to take those rights away.
You know, Sheila, two things.
Do we have
hang
on, let me just ask Olivia to find something. Do we have the clip of him in the House of Commons with talking about his daughter being in the audience? Because as a mom of a 18-year-old daughter, that just weirds me right out. Anyways, if you could find that, and we'll go into that next. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, two things. One is, if Justin Trudeau is so hell-bent on abortion rights, why is Canada one of the very few nations in the world where there is no law when it comes to abortion? Why is he only being a little bit pregnant on this? It's baffling. The second thing is, Sheila, in regard to the use of his children as props, whether it's the abortion issue, last year, you remember him going to the movies, he brought his son to Barbie and he brought his daughter to Oppenheimer. Well, of course, why wouldn't you? Serious question. What is your feeling as a mother, as a caregiver, as a mama bear, How do you think Sophie, his estranged wife, feels about this?
She's a bit of a huckster and a hustler, so I'm not even
yeah.
sure if she actually cares.
Jeez.
But I don't post my kids generally on my X account. If you're on my personal Facebook page, you will see them there. But everybody on my personal Facebook page, I know them. I know those people. It's where my family lives. But I don't like to use my kids' names on TV or anything like that. I just think they should be left alone to live their lives. Now, I think I'm raising some pretty good kids who are making some really decent choices. However, like, to drag your daughter into the House of Commons to announce that you are going to attack pro-life organizations who are giving out diapers to expectant and frightened teenage girls, I think is disgusting. I think it's just morbid. And maybe we have that clip. I don't know if you found it, Olivia, but it just gives me the grigglies. I just hate it.
Speaker, my daughter's in the gallery today, so I want her to hear me as long as everyone else does. This government is unequivocally pro-choice. We will always defend a woman's right to choose. The Conservative leader can't stand up and defend women's rights.
Unbelievable.
Here's the thing. Call me old-fashioned, but I would not like my grandchildren, my future grandchildren, to be aborted. Justin Trudeau seems to not have a problem with it. In fact, he seems quite enthusiastic at the prospect. But for me, I think, you know what? I want my kids to know, and I believe they do know this because they grew up in a pro-life household. And as someone who was pregnant in my teens, because my oldest is in his mid-20s now, I want them to know that an unexpected child, regardless of the inconvenience, is still a blessing in this household.
Yeah.
And they would have my love and support always, but it's my support especially during that time. And while it may be difficult, and while your priorities may shift for the next few years, it is, a child is always a good thing and the best thing. But Justin Trudeau doesn't feel that way. And it weirds me out with kids in that age. I would be alarmed, but like it just makes me feel yucky that he is so enthusiastic about his grandchildren being terminated. It just grosses me out.
It's incredible because, Sheila, as you alluded to, when it comes to Mama and Papa Bear, that love for your child has to be unconditional love. And it usually is with normal people, but we are talking about Justin Trudeau. Moving on, I know we're running out of racetrack here, Sheila.
Yep.
We should throw to a video of Joe Rogan, who actually referenced a couple of Rebel News stories in his interview.
Your stories.
Yeah,
your
well, you know what? I'll do the Barry Horowitz pat on the back. Not that I blow my own trumpet. Where's my trumpet? No, but anyways, why don't we run the video from Joe Rogan and maybe we can dig up that 2019 Rebel News video he was referencing. It's kind of chilling given how the Hitler Youth Movement for the last year now has been out on the streets of our great Dominion and other nations chanting for genocide. We'll throw to an interview with a guy who, was simply ahead of the curve. Anyways, let's go to Joe first.
Worst case scenario is a state adopts Sharia law. This is worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And I think all these people that would cry against the concept of Islamophobia really need to understand what that means and what you're talking about. And to say that that's an outrageous and ridiculous idea that's never going to take place, it's kind of already worked its way into some societies.
It has.
It has.
It has.
And there are, is it Minnesota that has call to prayer? Like, is it Minneapolis?
I don't know where. I know that there is a place in Minnesota, I believe, where they have prayer calls as a matter of local government. I do think that's happening.
That starts getting real weird.
Yeah. Well,
stuff like that starts getting real weird. And when you have people that are openly saying our goal is, and they've talked about this in Toronto, like activists have said, our goal is to outbreed everyone who is not Muslim and vote it out and put Sharia law in place.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you like to see Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will, because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. Your population is going down the slump, right? Yeah. And by 2060, according to Pew Research Institute, your research, by 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. Right. What are you going to do then? Actually, are you going to oppose Sharia even then?
Well, you know what? I'm very appreciative of the honesty. We don't usually get that. So you do support Sharia. You do want a Muslim majority nation in the West End, correct?
Just like you had a Western majority nation in a land of Native Americans, one day we can have a Muslim majority nation here in Canada, right in your face.
That's very scary.
Women have to wear burqas. This is how it works.
Yeah. Well, and that's what to me is so crazy about some of the hyper left-wing reaction to, the idea that like somehow I want to force every man, woman, and child to go to my church is ridiculous. I just don't want to do that. I've never had any interest in doing that. But where you see actual real religious tyranny is increasingly in Western societies where you've had a large influx of immigrants who don't necessarily assimilate into Western values, but try to create, I think, a religious tyranny at the local level. And if you think that won't happen at a national level, you're crazy.
Well, J.D. Vance is just getting better and better every day. Sheila, what a great pick that was by Donald Trump as the vice presidential candidate. But that individual, by the way, Sheila, and there was an interesting dynamic. Our viewers can go on and look at the full interview, which is still online. Throughout it, there are people coming up to him, the official parade marshals, the handlers, if you will, and they're trying to get him to shut up. And at one point, he tells the handler to shut up because he's off script. The mask is off. He is saying honestly, if not ominously, what he really believes in. He even goes on to make the case that, homosexuality is a sin, doesn't have a problem with those Islamic enclaves that kill homosexual people. And my one regret in that interview, Sheila, was simply this: to ask him if he had kids. I bet he does. And if the answer was yes, I should have said, sir, if, God forbid, in your book, one of your kids came out as gay, would you be okay with the death penalty for your own child? I wonder how he would answer that. I have a scary feeling it might not be the answer anyone wants to hear, i.e. in the affirmative, but that is how much of a zealot that guy is. And what like I said at the beginning, Sheila, simply ahead of the curve, because this stuff, 5 years later, post the October 7th, 2023 massacre in Israel, it's on so many streets of Western cities, so many campuses where Jews cower in fear. This was an indicator, if you will, of the future we're in now, just 5 years later.
Not only that, it's clear that he's given some very serious thought to this. He's citing Pew Research numbers.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't just something that he was like, yeah, we're just going to outbreed you because you guys don't have babies and we do. And Justin Trudeau is making sure that a lot of, Canadian babies aren't being born. But he's given it some real thought to his role in the changing demographics beyond anecdotes. And that is alarming.
Yep. Shiver me timbers. We appreciate Joe Rogan. His platform, I imagine he has millions and millions of viewers. Yes. And, and keep in mind, like I said, Sheila, the people behind that odious Al-Quds rally didn't want that kind of information transmitted. They're very careful, PR-wise and propaganda-wise, but that guy's mask slipped down, and wow, the ugly reality, it's appalling. I think we're down to the final minute, Sheila, I know
Yeah,
you have.
couple of things. We've got a couple of things. Speaking of ugly reality, I've never seen such a frightening screen capture from a surveillance camera as this. It looks like one of those like you've captured some sort of cryptid going past your trail camera. And I shouldn't be laughing because it's a serious topic.
No, I know the picture though. It's horrible.
Oh God, jeez. Mother church attack in Alberta, and it's funny how we report it because I wrote this up based on the EPS press release, the Edmonton Police Service press release, but how the other media wrote it up. You might want to grab it from the Albertan, and it's from the Canadian Press on this. It's in our morning media scan, Olivia, because they left something out that is very salient to all of this. They left out the people who actually live where the attack happened. So this is Edmonton police seek public assistance in identifying suspects in church arson and vandalism. Holy Rosary Church in central Edmonton has been the target of several acts of vandalism and arson over the past year, including 2 recent incidents in September. Edmonton police are asking for the public's help in tracking down these suspects, and what a pair of winners these two are. The first incident took place in September. A male and female suspect approached the church, damaging a security camera before fleeing. When approaching vehicles startled them, the suspect is described as white, male, approximately 30, dark hair, thin facial hair, tattoo on his forearms. At the time, he was smoking, wearing glasses, a black and white jacket, knee-length jean shorts, a black and white Louis Vuitton ball cap. I bet you that's a fake. And a thick gold chain. The female suspect had shoulder-length brown hair, wearing a pink ball cap, jean vest, gray jeans with ripped knees. She was carrying a brown purse and a black tote bag. Another male suspect reportedly spray painted the church's statue of Pope John Paul II. Excuse me. That's Saint John Paul II, with the word burn. So it's not, investigators have not confirmed it was the same individual in both incidents. According to EPS, and I took this directly from the EPS press release, incidents have left church members and nearby residents feeling uneasy, particularly those living in the rectory. You mean priests? And occupying adjacent buildings, including a convent and daycare. Now, if we go to how the Canadian Press reported it, they left the nuns and the priests completely out of this. They just said it's left church members and nearby residents feeling uneasy. They forget to say that there are priests living in the building when all of this stuff is happening. They just want to completely forget that because we wouldn't want anybody reminded that every time there's a spate of church burnings, arsons, and otherwise attacks on churches in a Catholic church with an attached directory, that's where the priests live. So you're trying to burn down the building with the priests in it.
Unbelievable. And by the way, Sheila, I just want to put a clarification out there. When I was chuckling at the beginning of this, of course, I'm not chuckling at the attack on the church. It was just that gruesome image, as you said.
The cryptid.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, maybe it's a distorted image given how close he is to the lens of the camera. Certainly, I'm not Gerald Butts. I'm not someone to put on X.
Yeah, his teeth are as scant as his morals.
Yeah, that it's understandable that these churches are being burnt to the ground. And in fact, back in August, Lincoln Jay and I, we were the only media people in Canada that went out to that New Brunswick Catholic church, an absolutely gorgeous edifice that was very nearly burnt to the ground. Thank goodness it never caught on fire, unlike so many other churches. One other thing I want to say, it struck me because I guess this is the Edmonton law enforcement and Edmonton media, the story you were reading from, but they actually referenced his race, white. Yeah, never. They said white. Yeah. Sheila,
that's how we know he was white. It's because they told us. Like if he were something else, although sometimes they will say appearing indigenous or whatever.
Oh, no. I can tell you in Ontario, race is no longer reported as the descriptor. I swear to God, the most important thing, you'll have a description like the assailant is described as male, 5'11", heavy set, and wearing a blue hoodie. Oh, great. You narrowed it down to maybe 6 million people. I mean, it is outrageous. But I can guess why they don't want to report race. There might be some races that are disproportionately involved in crime. It's just a guess. But Sheila, how could you possibly not report on the race of somebody involved in a crime? Because like I said, that descriptor, that hypothetical one I just gave you would apply to millions of people. Therefore, it's useless.
I'll never forget during COVID, and I can't even believe that the sketch artist wasted their time doing it. But during COVID, they talked about, I just went looking and I found something else that was kind of funny that we should talk about. It was a guy who robbed a convenience store. And it was a guy in a mask and a baseball cap. And I was like, why did you even waste the sketch artist's time? All you see is his eyeballs. And they drew it though, and they released, police require public's help in identifying the suspect. And I'm like, so like everybody, he's 5'10" to 6 feet tall, slender build, wearing a baseball cap and a mask. So like everybody.
It's unbelievable. You know, I mean, if there's an accident at Yonge and Eglinton and you say one was a sedan, one was an SUV, that's useless. But if you say it was a late model green Mazda 6, then now I've got something to look for. So it is absolutely ludicrous. They'll describe the color of the apparel and everything else, but not the skin color, which is the most important factor. And listen, I don't have a dog in the hunt. I don't care what color of skin you have when you commit a crime. You are a criminal. You are at large, and I want to be able to identify you. But the politically correct, woke police departments and their useful idiots in the mainstream media don't think we should have that information. Despicable.
Look, we're a little less woke here in Edmonton,
apparently.
At least our police services, because we will identify the race. Look at this, David. Olivia, bring it up. So apparently a Martian robbed a convenience store not all that long ago, actually 4 days ago. So I guess piggybacking on the fact that you can get away with being a Martian, during the Halloween season, the spooky season, he went in and cleaned out $6,000 worth of stuff.
So that was his cover. That brings me, you know, I used to always go to Leaf games in Buffalo, Sheila, because that's where the real Toronto Maple Leaf fans go. You'd think it was a home game for the Leafs. It's not these corporate tight asses that have the season tickets here in Hogtown. And I'll never forget, we went and it was the week of Halloween and we were on Main Street and there was a liquor store. And it was something you would never see in Ontario, but I wish I took a picture of it. And what it said was this, the sign: for your safety and ours, do not wear a mask in this store. Because, you know, in the land of the Second Amendment, you know, he might have a little device under the counter that takes care of masked men. And anyways, it was just a hilarious sign and fair game warning. Don't get on this guy's bad side. He's not having any of it.
All right. We've got one more quick message from our friends at stickerpack.com before we wrap up the show, unless we have some chats, Olivia. Maybe you can look or maybe someone can send one while I'm reading this. Wouldn't that be great? Are you ready to show your support in style? Sticker Mule has a fantastic offer just for you. For a limited time, you can grab free Trump stickers. Yes, you heard that right, free. Whether you want to decorate your laptop, car, or office space, these high-quality, durable stickers are perfect for making a statement. Just imagine how great they'll look, and they're super easy to apply. Here's how it works. Head over to Sticker Pack, that's PAC.com, like Political Action Committee. Sign up and claim your free stickers and watch the fun unfold. Stick them on your liberal friend's car. If you have liberal friends. Actually, don't do that. I don't want to advise you to commit mischief. You'll end up in a very long trial. This is Canada. Sign up and claim your free stickers and watch the fun unfold. Don't miss out on this exclusive offer. Stock is limited, so act fast, spread the word, and let your voice be heard with Sticker Mule's awesome stickers. Once again, visit stickerpack.com today and grab your free Trump stickers before they're gone. All right. I think that's
you
it,
raise
David.
a very important point here, I think. Is that a crime to put a political
vandalism.
sticker? It is? It would count as
Probably.
vandalism?
I'm
Okay,
sure
then.
it would. This is Canada. Did something remotely cheeky and conservative, straight to jail.
Unbelievable. Because I got to, and by the way, if someone can explain why every time I see a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker and the Pride Progress bumper sticker, it is almost always on a Subaru. I don't know what it is, but I'm baffled. Anyhow, Sheila, who once owned a Subaru with no such bumper stickers on it, do we have any super chats?
We can wrap it up.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Thank you for our super chatters. And I hope Wonder Woman Wells does tell us about this latest egregious censorship story. We'll look into that. I hope you all have a great weekend. Sheila and I will be back on Monday, the day before the big presidential election in the U.S. In the meantime, as always, stay safe and stay sane.
I'm in Brazil, so I'm using a VPN to get on the internet. What's a VPN? It stands for a virtual private network, and you get around these government firewalls. Suddenly, the president of Brazil banned his whole country from going on Twitter. It was a political censorship news. I've downloaded the VPN from a company called PIA VPN. We've teamed up with them at Rebel, and it's a great deal. I got on the internet really quickly, safely, and even I'm a bit of a technophobe. I managed to figure it out with 2 clicks. And here's the great news. If you go to piavpn.com/rebel news, not only do you get a big discount, but they pay us a bit of a commission too. Everyone's a winner. Your freedom, your VPN, and a little bit of cash coming to support Rebel News. I'm using it myself to get around the censors in Brazil. You can use it too. That's piavpn.com/rebel news.